Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the latest rounds of the Team Championship as we fly off to Asia for the Chinese and Vietnamese Grand Prix. This is season 35 and the year in which we celebrate our 10th anniversary. I'm joined tonight by former top-tier champion Roy Scorer. Roy, good evening. Great to have you alongside me.
Good evening, Dom, and I'm looking forward to the races tonight here. We first have China, followed by the Hanoi Street Circuit in Vietnam.
Indeed, should be another entertaining, thrilling couple of races coming up. We have 5 minutes of the session remaining. Matt Hilbert is currently the quickest driver. All drivers will have another lap to go in this session as we count down the closing minutes. But Matt Hilbert is currently the quickest driver with a 1:29.1. Softy, a 1:29.2, just a tenth back. And look how tight it is. You've got Jack Hickey and Phil Bardwell in the mix, less than a tenth, covering the top four at the moment. So all to play for. The Alfa Romeos of Corey and J-Luke looking for a response here this time round. They got their first win of the season last week, courtesy of Corey. At the moment, Corey 4 tenths back in fifth. It's an Alfa Romeo third row at the moment. One to watch, Aidan Griffins. Normally in the Racing Point is a bit higher than P10. He's still yet to complete a second lap. Only set one lap in this session so far. Invalidated his second, so expect his next time to be much improved. But Softy so far has been the man in form this season. 7 victories. These are the two tracks that he says aren't necessarily going to suit him, but is Softy your man to watch tonight again, Roy?
I think so. I mean, Softy, he's the king of consistency at the moment. He's not making as many mistakes as his rivals. Hasn't been perfect so far this season, of course, but I think, in terms of outright pace, he's right there. Consistency, I think, unless a disaster happens.
What can he do about his qualifying session here in China? He's only had 4 poles this season, so not been as successful on qualifying day. Matt Tibbles and in qualifying, but Softy, of course, in the races. So who out there then is about to start their final laps of the session? We have got JD currently 18th on the grid, yet to set a time in this session. After him, we'll have, I think, the Alfa Romeo of Corey. He'll be the first of the big runners to try and take pole position. Corey, so far this season, is yet to take pole position, but he did win last week at Belgium, so is now coming to some sort of form. The former champion hopefully will be one to watch in this session. But China and Vietnam, 2 circuits, not the most loved circuits, I think it's fair to say, between the drivers, but it can produce some crazy racing, especially Vietnam. Of course, anything can happen there with a tight, twisty track, and it's a street circuit. So, Roy, how do you see both races going?
Yeah, I think, as you said, both races have the potential to throw up some great surprises. I think the circuits, I say, more loved by fans than drivers. I think it's more they're better for spectators than to actually drive on. But of course, Vietnam, the walls are either side of you. Overtakes are always quite risky. Always risking wing damage around that circuit. And of course, China, a big open circuit, plenty of overtaking opportunities, and you just don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes ERS deployment is crucial.
Indeed it will be. We'll keep an eye on that throughout the race. The ERS deployment, drivers using it to their advantage at different parts of the race to try and take the ultimate race pace and take, hopefully, what they believe to be the checkered flag. But we're starting the final laps now, and Corsa F1, currently P5, has 4 tenths to find if he's to displace Matt Tibbos of pole position. We've got J-Luke now going into 5th, so his teammate has gone ahead, only just by a fraction, by about 600ths of a second. But for now, he's ahead. But Corey is improving in the first edit. It's purple so far, the quickest time we've seen in Sector 1 as Matt Tibbons is about to begin his final lap of this session with just under 2 minutes of this session remaining. Corey has kept it clean and tidy so far. It's a bit wide there. Trying not to take too much of that curve. It's very easy to invalidate around here. And then after this, it's just 3 more corners to come. There's a Racing Point ahead. A bit of traffic as well ahead of him, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue. He may even get a slipstream or some extra tow down this long back straight. Corey, so far, we'll see how quick he is. Very shortly, he's just got 25 more seconds to negotiate. All the cars keeping out of the way on the right. Shouldn't cost Corey anything at all. Just now, I think 2 more corners to go for the Alfa Romeo. It's looking quick. Roy, do you think he can do it?
Well, I mean, at the moment, I think he's on track to do so, but of course the others are still on their laps. The Alfa Romeo driver now negotiating his way around the penultimate corner. Just 1 more corner to go. He needs to be careful to keep it within the white lines of the circuit, and he just about does so. DRS wide open, and Corsa goes P5. So still incredibly close, but only enough for P5.
It's bad news for Matt Tibos. He has backed out of whatever lap he was setting, so he will not be improving this time round. We turn to Phil Bardwell because he is 2/10 quicker in the first sector. That would be more than enough to get him on pole position. Could we be seeing a shock pole position here for Phil Bardwell? He would be his first of the season so far. It's looking very quick for the Ferrari driver. So if he can keep this together, of course, recently did turn TC off altogether. So he's finding a bit more confidence now, a bit more form. And that Ferrari driver is looking for his first pole of this season. He has just a couple more corners to negotiate. Can he get himself onto the front row? At the very least, it's so tight between that top four that Phil Bardwell is setting blissed first and second sectors. We'll find out if Matt Tibos is going to do another lap. He's not. There he's getting out of the way. Will there be enough time to get round the final corner? But Phil Bardwell round the final corner. Be careful not to invalidate it. Again, very easy to do. To the line. Is Phil Bardwell going to take pole at China? It is a 1:29.0 for now at least. He does take provisional pole. But who's next on a lap? We've got Softcop. Can't count him out. 4 poles already this season. He just needs to find 2/10 to beat Phil Bardwell. It's looking good. So validated it. He will not be improving on that time of Phil Bardwell. He did in fact set a 1:29.1, which would have been only enough for second. So he's not found that time. Phil Bardwell for now has corner. Can he get himself onto that front row? Softy could be starting back on the second row or third row here. Jack Hickey goes quickest with a 1:28.999. 19 thousandths quicker than what we saw from Phil Bardwell. Dan the Man's also out there improving in the second Ferrari. Can he get ahead of his teammate? We're seeing an unusual grid here. Jack Hickey himself also looking for his first ever pole position. And don't forget, Matt Tibos is still out there on another lap. Matt Tibos could be taking his first pole position since the United States 2 weeks ago. What can Dan the Man do? It's the Alfa Romeos, but it's not enough for him. CJH in the McLaren, what can he do? He's currently beating his teammate Ginger Andy, who will start no higher than 15th. He has invalidated his final lap. We've got Jonas also just behind the McLaren, but where can the McLaren go? Can he get himself into the top 5? He can't. He stays 8th. John is now right behind him. What can he do? Can he get himself ahead of the McLaren at least? He doesn't. He stays 9th. So it is just Matt Tibos left on a lap. Round the final corner. Can the Mercedes take pole position away from Jack Hickey? At the very dead of the moment he does. By 600ths of a second. Matt Tibos, what a lap. Was it ever in doubt, Roy?
Well, I mean, I think it was at some point. You know, he invalidated his initial run, and you know there was questions to whether or not he'd actually make the finish line, but he just about did it, just in time. And an incredible qualifying session we had there. Maybe not the most surprising pole sitter, but yeah, an incredible qualifying session to watch, and laps changing all the time. Softy invalidating that final run. I wonder if that would have been quick enough to take pole position, but at the end of the day, if you're not all 4 wheels within the white lines, your lap will not count.
Indeed it will not. So what a lap it was to claim the pole position for this season. It's his first since the United States. 4 races to go. It's his 4th for the season, which ties him with Softy, but look how tight that was. Phil Bardwell and Jack Hickey came so close to getting their first poles of the season. In the end, 2nd and 3rd for them. We've got 5 different teams in the top 5. Softy only 4th position. What can he do in the race? The championship leader looking good in the championship, not looking so good here at Shanghai. Corey, Dan, J-Luke, CJH, Jonas and Aidan complete the top 10, and it's a disappointing qualifying, you have to say, for Alistair Bain. Dan in 13th. Renault driver really impressed at France last week, but for him, he starts back on the 7th row of the grid alongside Owen. So then we turn to Chinese Grand Prix, and tyre wear is a bit of an issue, I believe, here, Roy.
Yeah, I believe the soft tyres wear very, very quickly, so strategy can be crucial. It's all about, you know, can you eke out the life in your soft tyres at the start of the race, or perhaps, you know, drivers at the back could potentially even start on the medium tyres. I believe last season I started on the mediums and ended up 6th after starting at the back because, you know, safety cars can't come out here, so strategy can be crucial around here.
AWS do predict that the medium to soft tyre is actually the quicker strategy here, but of course a lot of the drivers will not be going for that tactic just because they've had to have started on the soft tyres, the tyres that they set their fastest laps on in qualifying. The top 10 all forced to start on those soft tyres, but 11th downwards, don't be surprised if they choose to start on the medium tyres. So just seconds away from this race, who is your pick for the race winner, Roy?
I'm going to say, given that Softy is 3 places behind Matt Tibos, I'm going to have to give this one to Matt. I think Matt would be the winner. But let's wait and see.
Well, can Matt Tibos take only his 2nd victory of the season? Won at United States a couple of weeks ago. We're about to go racing here at China. 4 lights, 5 lights. And we're underway. It's a great start from the racing point of Jack Hickey. Will he be first into turn one? I think he may have jumped Matt Tibbles already. They're side by side. Phil Bardwell in the inside of it. All three of them. As Phil Bardwell is tangled. Softy went up the inside. He hit the Ferrari. And that is not what he needed. We've got a yellow flag in sector one. That's caused carnage behind. But not what Phil Bardwell needed. It was looking good. But Softy charging his way up the inside has forced him down the order. There will be a safety car. A chance for Phil to get back to the garage. Get a new front wing change. And will all the drivers now choose to pit on the first lap and go to the end of the race on medium or hard tyres? So we'll be interested to see how that develops. I don't know what you saw of that, Roy, but it was a pretty messy turn one from Softy and Phil.
Yeah, I think Softy began to drift towards the racing line, but there was 3 cars there. There was nowhere that Phil could go. But of course, replays will be crucial to actually analyse that bit of contact. But yeah, at the moment it's Phil Bardwell who's now gone from from P3 to P18. He's last at the moment. But the safety car may be a saving grace for his race.
Well, it was a great start for Maiden Griffins, up 3 places already into 7th place. Of course, helped by the Ferrari of Phil going off circuit, but he still made 2 overtakes into turn 1 and 3 turns 2 and 3. It was a good move for the Racing Point driver, but now we're about to see how this race unfolds. Who will dive into the pit lane for new tyres? Surely they're all going to come in. Do you think anyone might stay out?
I think someone may risk staying out in case there is a second safety car. 3 drivers on the medium compound, that is Jake Davies in the Red Bull in P10, Ginger Andy in P13 in his McLaren, and Alistair Bain, the reigning TGP2 champion, is also starting on the medium tyres. But tyre wear is quite rough around here, so maybe we might see drivers trying the hard tyres and hopefully having it pay dividends towards the end. But here we go now. The drivers all coming into the pits. I don't think anybody's staying out so far. I think there's one driver, JD in the Red Bull has decided to stay out, but every other driver, no, there is actually 2 other drivers. Court has also decided to stay out. So interesting tactics here, and we see Matt Tibos being held up in the pit lane as all these cars are coming through. Very long stop for the Mercedes driver. How will the other drivers fare? I think Softy's actually managed to jump him, and I believe actually it's Jack Hickey now that leads this race in his Racing Point.
Yeah, so not only did Softy spin Phil round to the back, but because of that, it meant Phil came in late to the box and held up Matt Tibos, who was leading the race. So it worked out quite well for Softy, didn't it? Matt Tibos having to queue, having to wait, and he himself is now back behind 4 other drivers. CJH up to what is a net P4 now. Fantastic for him. Corey up to 3rd. Jack Hickey, in fact, jumped Softy as well. So Softy may be held up a little bit by Jack Hickey's teammate, the Racing Point. The garage is unfortunately a little too small around some of these circuits, and some drivers having to wait up. But interestingly, Alistair and Andy, who did start on the medium tyres, decided to pit anyway. But this is looking very good for Softy now. He's already in a position where he's ahead of Matt Tibos and Corey, and now right behind Jack Hickey. But Jordan, Court and JD staying out, all on, I think the top 2, or the top 2nd and 3rd at least, on the soft tyres. JD on the mediums. So those 3, what's it going to be for them, Roy? Do you think they're going to stay out to around lap 4 or 5?
I think JD will stay out by virtue of being on the mediums, but I think the soft tyre runners, I don't know what their strategy is. I think Jordan has a habit of staying out behind the safety car. So I think he may be compromised later on if he doesn't get a bit of luck with further safety cars. But Court, I think he was towards the back of the grid anyway. Other than that, I don't think it's really going to benefit him being out this long.
Yeah, I have to say, a bit confused as to why Court and Jordan would stay out on those soft tyres. They're at the front of the pack, but they are going to have to make their pit stops in a few laps anyway, and even still they're going to be passed very quickly by Jack Hickey, Softy, Corey, CJH, all charging through the field. They're going to lose more time than they're going to gain from staying out near the front. I wouldn't be surprised if they both choose to pit this time round and just drop to the back of the field on new medium tyres. Court stays out. Jordan does indeed do just that. He is going to go to the back of the pack, be right down in 18th position, but at least he will be on the back of the pack and ready to go racing to the end on medium tyres. But then a quick update of your order. It is JD leading the way on the medium tyres, but yet to make a pit stop in this race. Same for Court. The top 2 will have to stop at some point. So Jack Hickey in P3 is your real race leader, followed by Softy, Causa, CJH, Matt Tibos, Dan the Man, Maya Quemby, and Johners rounding out the current top 10. But safety cars, we've seen a few of them this season. Of course, they tweak how a driver's strategy might go throughout a race. Drivers can plan to pit on certain laps, but if a safety car comes out, a VSC, in most cases, you've got to react because it's a cheap pit stop, if you will. No advantages, I don't think, for staying out under a safety car, Roy, unless you're on the alternate strategy.
Exactly, yeah. I think it would even still require a further safety car later on in the race to benefit these other drivers. I mean, Kurt, perhaps has some good tyre wear underneath him, but yeah, I can't see this working out for him. Interestingly, in addition to Jordan, Andy and Alistair also decided to come into the pits. Andy switched to hard compound tyres in his first stop and has now gone back onto the mediums because, of course, he did start on those tyres. And Alistair Bain has also switched from soft to medium in his second pit stop because the softs were never going to last the full race. So those drivers, they were sort of at the back anyway, so they've nothing to lose, and now they've a lap pressure tyres in the rest of the grid.
Yeah, I think good call there from those two to get back onto the better tyres for the remainder of the race. The safety car is going to come in this lap. Worth to note, Jack Hickey, who is the real race leader, once the top two in front make their stops, he would become the first ever driver potentially to win a race in TGB1, TGB2 and our TGP top tier F1 league on Xbox. TGB Xbox, what a throwback. So a bit of history could be here for the Racer Point. He's going to have to clear Court and JD very quickly. JD is a former champion himself. Court Gillison, the famous Gillison, of course his brother is an esports champion. Court, however, I think is a TGB Dirt rally stage winner. Not quite as good as Isaac's achievements, Roy.
Not quite, but a quick driver nonetheless, and he's currently in P2, and let's see what he can do for the rest of this Chinese Grand Prix.
Well then, we're about to go racing once again. We will 11 laps to the finish. We're about to start the fourth lap of 14. JD leading the way. He will decide when we go racing again. In fact, he's already gone. In fact, he has. Safety car is in the pits, and the Red Bull has started them off. Keep an eye on Matt Tibbers. What can he do? He's going to have to clear the McLaren as quickly as he wants to if he wants to win this race, as the McLaren also looks to get the Alfa Romeo of Corsa ahead of him. Jack Hickey, though, defending for now from Softy. It is JD who leads them into turn one. He's kept that lead as Court goes a little wide. That could give a chance to Jack Hickey to take the position from him pretty quickly, but Court recovered it well. And for now, Jack Hickey remains in third place. It's a very clean start. We've got Alistair and Andy going side by side further at the back, but at the front, it is JD from Court, from Jack Hickey. Softy remains within 2/10 of the Racer Point. Will he go for a move down the inside? I don't think he will. I think he's a bit too far back. He'll think better of it. Of course, he's got Corey right on his tail. Those two made contact at Belgium. Softy left spinning, Corey left winning. So Softy will not want to be in a fight with him for too long. Great move in the background from Jonas getting past Owen into P9. We've got Has going very wide. Court is all over the place, struggling on those soft tyres. Already, those tyres appear to have gone off, and this gives Jack Hickey a glorious chance to get through already, but this is costing him time if he can't get through into these couple of corners. Softy getting ever closer to the back of that Racing Point as Matt Tibbles continues to harass CJH. The two Williams drivers have passed. Bodwell is really struggling in this race. It's just not going to plan for him. But look how close Softy is to the back of Jack Hickey. Are we going to see a move here? What would be the net race lead? Can Jack Hickey save himself because of the tow in front that he's getting from Court? Look how much quicker the AlphaTauri is on the Racing Point, but he might just be too far back. He's going to think about a move up the insides. It's not going to be this time round. Gets very close, almost tagging the back with his front wing as Corey also right on the tail of Softy. And Matt Tibbs thought about going for a move there on the McLaren of CJH, who has really come alive in the last few weeks, been our driver of the last few weeks. Matt Tibbs is going to get a great chance here to get CJH into turn one round the outside. He's going to get through. He is going to do just that. Matt Tibbs crucially ahead of the McLaren, but they're going side by side still. And the McLaren comes straight back at him. And look at this. This is brilliant racing, but Matt Tibbles has to go behind once again as Softy, you can see, ahead of these two. These two still side by side, but Softy ahead is still harassing the Racing Point of Jack Hickey. Jack Hickey not making the moves he wants to make. Matt Tibbles, another chance here to get through. Lots of overtaking opportunities here at China. And he goes around the outside. That'll be a beautiful move. He can make it stick, but he's going to go very wide, I think. And that should allow CJH to keep the position. And Dan the man right behind him, looking to get in on the action as well. So an eventful restart. Very clean racing here from the drivers. Ginger Andy has dropped behind Alistair Bain, now down into P18. Phil Bodwell has got back past the second Williams of Camo Babo. But an eventful restart, and Corey will want to clear Softy soon, and Jack Hickey surely wants to get past Court.
Yeah, I mean, they're in their position so far, but of course both yet to stop. And I think it's helping Softy out because Softy is now right on the back of Jack Hickman. He's only 3/10 back heading onto this massive straight. Can he make a move down into the hairpin?
Well, Jack Hickey is on roughly the same ERS as Softy. They will both use as much as they can. In fact, Softy choosing not to use any down into his final corner. He knows he doesn't need to. Jack Hickey will use his plays to Softy's advantage later in the race. So crucial to manage that smartly, but you can see that Softy just for now can't quite get close enough to Jack Hickey. He wants to wait a little bit, doesn't need to rush this. There's still 10 laps in this race to go. Matt Tibbles not making the moves that he wanted to make. He is still stuck behind CJH. Will this be another chance for him to get him into turn 1? Again, we can see how much quicker he is. Will this time to go for the inside? CJ will surely defend that inside line. Matt Tibbles isn't quite close enough. Matt looking for his 40th career victory in TGP1, but he needs to clear these cars soon. He appears to be the quickest man around this circuit, as we saw in qualifying, but for now, struggling to get past that McLaren. And where's his best chance going to come? Do you think it'll be the back straight, or maybe turns 1, 2 or 3, Roy?
I think, given that we may have a DRS train around this circuit, he may need to get inventive. He may need to have a look into corners like turn 6 if he wants to get past the McLaren driver. But yeah, at the moment it's still a fascinating race. We still have a bit of a ERS deployment game going on here. You know, drivers opting not to use it. I think some drivers are happy to just stay in the tow of the drivers ahead and then potentially use it in their defence later on in the race.
Matt Tibbles is going to be all over CJH, I suspect, next time round, if not on the back straight, because the McLaren has used all of his ERS. Matt Tibbles with 50%, so much better off, but Softy is so close to Jack Hickey. Jack Hickey will crucially take the DRS once it's deployed from Cord, because he is within that second gap, and Softy was in about 2/10 of Jack Hickey. Jack Hickey goes a bit wide, a bit squirrely, and this is surely Softy's opportunity to go through into P3. Look at the extra speed he has, DRS to add to his measure. Surely this time he will get through on the racing point, but the racing point has such great straight line speed that he stays clear for now, and Corey behind is going to think about trying to get both of them, but Softy breaks a little later, locks up as Corey tags the back of Jack Hickey, which might actually help. But Jack Hickey, Corey needs to be careful there, because 3 into 1 will not go, but Softy gets crucially ahead of Jack Hickey. He broke too late, but Jack Hickey wasn't able to cut back, and Softy takes a net lead, and Corey all over the back of Jack Hickey. As in the background, Matt Tibbles once again has another chance to try and get the McLaren, who has used all of his ERS, but as the CJH gets the DRS, makes it a little harder for the Mercedes driver.
Yeah, crucially for Softy, he's not really going to be able to break away from Jack Hickman because Kurt is still one place ahead of him. He's only a second up the road, so he will be in the dirty air of the Haas ahead. But I think in terms of ERS management, Softy's actually the best so far. Softy's got 20% more than Jack Hickman in fourth, and Corey is only down to 30%. So Softy right now looking to have played a strategical masterclass as things stand.
We've got Owen and J-Luke side by side, further back, fighting for the final points in this race. Paul McGee for now holding on to P10. J-Luke close behind him. Just 3/10 is the gap as Owen looks to join in on this fight. Owen only scored 1 point finish all season, which of course came at where was it? It was at Belgium, wasn't it? Managed to get P10. A bit scurry there from Owen. That's not going to help his cause as he tries to catch the two ahead. Aidan Griffins is right on the back of him, but back at the front. This is a crucial stage of the race for Matt Tibbles. He can see Softy now in clean air. Softy is going to go past on Court very quickly, very easily, but behind him we're going to have CJH on Corey, Matt Tibbles on CJH. These three could be 3 wide into turn 1, but the way this is going, Matt Tibbles goes to the right of the McLaren driver. He will have the inside for the next corner. They almost bang wheels on this run down to the penultimate corner. He might race a little later. They're going to run out of room if they're not careful, and that was a bit clumsy, I have to say. I think maybe the McLaren should have backed out of that one a bit more. But Corey, for now, holds P5, and we can see Court finally making a pit stop at the end of lap 7.
And what's happened to Softy? Softy's down in P9. What's happened to him?
Oh, Softy's down to 8. What's happened? Softy must have had a spin somewhere. I've missed it. The AlphaTauri driver is down in P9. I'm not quite sure what happened. I don't know if you saw that, Roy, but that is not what he needed in this race.
I didn't see what happened. My guess, maybe did Kurt maybe clip him coming into the pits? Because obviously you go much faster through the final corner if you are entering the pit. So maybe he clipped Softy's AlphaTauri and sent him into a spin.
Well, that puts Jack Hickey back in the net lead of this race. Jonathan Dalaman going side by side. We saw a great move. I think it was between Ricciardo and Vettel, I think. A few years ago at the Chinese Grand Prix of, I think, 2017 or 2018. John is looking to clear the Ferrari of Dalaman, but look at this. We've got Jack Hickey, Causa, CJH, Matt Tibbles, Dan, Jonas, J-Luke, and Softy all so close on circuit. Even behind Softy, Paul is just 3/10 back. I don't think Softy has any damage, but it is possible he might have some, because Paul is sticking right with the AlphaTauri driver, but battles throughout the field. Matt Tibbles still stuck behind that McLaren. We saw these three come close the previous lap. I suspect we may see another attack from the Mercedes driver down this long back straight. Jack Hickey is 2.4 seconds clear of Causa, looking for his first ever win in TGP1. Will it be a good day for Jack Hickey? We've got the McLaren of CJH now attacking Corey for P3, which is a net P2. He goes to the wide. Corey will have the inside line. He'll break a little later. Matt Tibbles will look to try and get the McLaren. While he's at it, they bang wheels almost again. But for now, they remain in the same order they were a lap ago.
Yeah, very close now between Matt and CJH. I think Matt is the closest he's ever been. He dives to the inside. Very late move from Matt there. but he's got the inside line now heading into turn 1, which is crucial. Can he keep the position? CJ trying to hang around at the outside, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it. Or maybe he can up the inside of turn 2. Matt Tibos runs wide, almost sent into a spin, but Matt Tibos has the inside line now for turn 3, but now turns into the outside for turn 4, but now the inside again for turn 6. So Matt Tibos now with the inside line should have the position, and Matt Tibos moves up into P4.
Matt Tibos finally gets through on the McLaren. I think he was getting a bit annoyed there to have been behind him for so long, but finally it appears he is clear of CJH, and now he will look to attack Corey. Is it too much, too late to try and do anything about the race victory? Jack Hickey is 3 seconds clear almost. It's looking good for the Racing Point. I don't want to jinx it. It would be a very popular win in the field, it has to be said, if he can just hold on. JD surely will pit for softs around lap 10 or 11, do 3 or 4 laps at the very end on those soft tyres. But Matt Tibos already all over the back of that Alfa Romeo. Look how much that Corsa is struggling. Corey can see the Mercedes in his rearview mirror, and I suspect he's not going to have much to do about this.
No, I think this should be a fairly straightforward move for the Mercedes driver. The camera not being great for me right now, showing the rear view, but his DRS wide open. He's got the inside line, and the Mercedes driver takes the position away from the Alfa Romeo, but runs a bit deep, and Corsa is now up the inside again, runs him off the road. That may need to be looked at later on potentially, but Corsa for now keeps P3, and it's actually led the McLaren of CJH back into P4 and ahead of Matt Tibos. Disaster for the Mercedes driver.
Well, can CJH now get clear of Corey? Corey making that Alfa Romeo as wide as he possibly can. They're going to go 2 side by side into turn 1. Be careful, boys. And does this allow Matt Tibos to finally clear Corey? These 3 have been so close for so long, and surely it's going to end in tears. But CJH is in that net P2. Jack Hickey extends his lead all the while. He'll be loving this. You can see 3 cars fighting further back. Corey now back behind Matt Tibos. These 2 still side by side. Will Corey try to hold the outside? Matt Tibos may be a bit annoyed that Corey forced him off on the previous lap. Will he give a bit of his own medicine back to Corey? But for now, he's taken P4 as Softy is just a 10th back from Jonas. Can he clear the Renault? Softy looking to get some good points here. Championship leader currently down in P8, would become P7 once that Red Bull of JD finally makes his stop. But can the man from Nottingham clear the man from, where's Jonas from? Is it Essex?
It is Essex, yes.
The man from Essex is chasing the man from Liverpool down the man currently P5, but Jack Hickey now has caught up with JD, so he'll get a bit of DRS as well, a bit more advantage for him to play with. The action at the moment is all about CJH and Matt Tibos. CJH has used almost all of his reserves. Matt Tibos has just a little bit spare. He will have the DRS as well this time round, which the McLaren does not have the advantage of. But I think he's a little too far back, as Jack Hickey ahead of him has cleared JD, who surely this time will pit for medium tyres and come out around 15th or 16th. Unfortunately for him, it's going to be tough ass to get some points, but he will be very quick at the end on those soft tyres. And indeed, he does pit this time round. So Jack Hickey has now 4 more laps to negotiate to try and hold on for this win, as Matt Tibos once again comes close to CJH. We've got Softy further back trying to find Jonas as well. Is this Matt Tibos' chance finally to get through? They're going to go side by side for about the 50th time this race, I think. Matt Tibos, they bang wheels again. A little slide from the Mercedes. Can he get himself through? There's a second gap now to Corey. Corey really struggling in this second half of the race on those medium tyres. He's got Dan the Man attacking him, but while Dan the Man attacks him, we've got Matt Tibos attacking CJH. Can the McLaren driver hold on for what would be a remarkable second place finish? It would be his first podium of the season. But Matt Tibos for now in P3.
Yeah, Matt Tibos will be incredibly frustrated, but you know, the saving grace for him so far is that Softy's only P6 after the incident. Well, the cause of which we need to find out later on, but yeah, Matt Tibos will still take points off Softy in the Drivers' Championship. Not that it will narrow it down by a huge margin, it has to be said, but yeah, Matt Tibos, I think he'll be very annoyed, especially with that pit stop earlier on, which is the reason he's down here in the first place. But yeah, he's currently on for a podium, and I have to say, I think the win may be out of reach at this point.
The Constructors' Championship, of course, so tight this season. It's Racing Point and AlphaTauri tied on 202 points each. Jack Hickey is outscoring Softy. Aidan Finau outscoring Owen, but will drop back behind him once his time penalties are applied come the end of the race. With 3 more tours of this Chinese Grand Prix Shanghai circuit to go, Jack Hickey leads by 4.3 seconds. Can he keep his head for what would be his first ever victory in TGP1? He'll become the first man to have won a race in TGP1, TGP2 and our Xbox League, TGP Xbox. He thought about that stat earlier this week, and it looks like maybe he was thinking about it for a reason. Maybe he knew he was quick around here. Softy, though, is now past Dan the Man into P5, so he's working his way through the field, and up next for him, it is going to be Corey. How hard will Corey make Softy work for this? These two made contact at Belgium last week. I'm sure you'll remember. I'm sure Softy will remember. Corey going on to win the race. It's Kamababa only now becomes the first casualty from this Grand Prix. Jack Hickey looking good, 4.4 seconds clear. Matt Tibble still finding it hard to pass the McLaren. Corey versus Softy for 4th and 5th. Which way do you see this going?
Well, I mean, I think Corey will make it difficult for the AlphaTauri driver. These two do have history on the racetrack, but I think if Softy has the ERS management on his side, which he does, it should be a fairly straightforward move down this back straight.
Yeah, I think you're right. We have got Aiden with 6 seconds worth of time penalties, Dan and Phil with 3, so it'll change the places a little bit come the end of the race. Jordan's up 5 places into P13. Great drive from him so far, but we can see Softy now right on the back of this Alfa Romeo, while further ahead Matt Tibbles tries to close in on the McLaren, but he's not quite close enough. Softy though is. Surely this is going to be an easy move into turn 1. It's going to be Premier League versus Championship, I think. Dan the man, keep an eye on him behind these two. We'll get very close to the action. In fact, he almost tags the back of the Alfa Romeo, but Softy's a very clean, nicely done move, and you can see the train behind Corey. There's about 7-8 drivers separated by about 2 seconds, all fighting for the midfield positions in this race. Matt Tibble still not quite close enough to CJH, but he is a little bit close enough to maybe think about going side by side again into turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, the Mercedes driver still behind the McLaren. The CJH has to be said doing a brilliant defensive job, and he'll be on for a podium, I think, at worst as things stand. But Matt Tibbles now has the run down into turn 6. Can he make a move down the inside? CJH will defend it, of course. The Mercedes driver tries to make a move around the outside, but he's just not able to do so. There's just not enough space available, but he does have an advantage on the exit here. Can he make a move around the outside of turn 7? He's going to go for it, but I think the track is just a bit too dirty, and they almost make contact. I think they do make contact, and Matt almost spins, but manages to keep the car under control.
Matt needs to be smart here if he wants to gain points on his championship rival Softy. He can't afford to get in an instant because Softy is just 2 seconds back, waiting for any possible opportunity to nick these points and extend his championship lead. Jack Hickey is having some race up front, isn't he? Almost 5 seconds now he leads from the McLaren driver. CJH looking so good for what would be his best ever result in the league. Matt Tibbles is not going to claim his 40th Grand Prix victory, I don't think, but look at this. He's ran out of hers, Matt Tibbles, but he does have the advantage of DRS and the slipstream. This is going to be his best chance, I think, in the last few laps. He's going to go to the inside. CJ8 moves a little late, and that forces Matt to go to the outside into turn number, whatever that corner's called. And Matt Tibbles, crucially, ahead of the McLaren driver, finally, and will now want to clear him into turn 1 before the McLaren can fight back. Yeah. Dan and Jonas go side by side into the final corner. Sorry, these two, of course, former champions. Dan the man, a 4-time former champion. Jonas, a 2-time former champion. And it's Dan the man who gets ahead of the Renault. But Jonas will come straight back at him. Going into turn 1 again. Can he get the move up the inside? The Ferrari will look to defend smartly. These two have great history together. Good friends on and off the circuit. And Dan the man, for now, sits around the outside, but now goes into the inside. And as you've said before, we've seen it with many drivers. These two can now remain side by side for so long of this lap. The first sector is so good to see side by side racing. But it looks like Jonas, for now, is going to take the position ahead of the Ferrari.
Yeah, Dan the man said before these races tonight that he expects to struggle at both circuits. They're both circuits that he does not do particularly well at. And in addition to being down in 7th place, Dan does have that penalty, which will drop him even further down the grid, I believe, potentially to P9. So it's not looking too good for the Ferrari driver, and he's just been passed by J-Luke in the Alfa Romeo.
I wonder if Softy's close enough to get the McLaren. It'll be a shame if CJ loses his podium on the final lap. He's just about a second clear of the AlphaTauri, and if Softy locks up further back, I think he might just be for that position. But we have got J-Luke now ahead of Dan the man in P7. The Ferrari looking to clear the Alfa Romeo as soon as he can. He's got a time penalty, but may still get points because there's a few behind him who also have penalties. But Jack Hickey, this is going to be some moment for him up at the front. It's going to be his first ever victory in TGP1. It's going to be his 5th win of the season. But what a drive it's been from the Racing Point driver. He puts his team back at the front of the Constructors' Championship. Jack Hickey is a winner in TGP1. Matt Tibbles will take P2. He'll close some points on Softy. CJH an incredible P3. The McLaren driver will be very happy with that. Softy takes 4th in the end. And further back, we're seeing battles throughout the field. It was Dan the man who finished behind Paul in the end, but Owen jumps up to 9th, gets some points back there for AlphaTauri because the second Racing Point of Aiden does not score. He drops to 14th because of his 6 seconds worth of time penalties. But what a race, and Dan the man just about stayed a 10th clear of Jordan to take the final points position.
Incredible driving from the Racing Point driver. and a deserved win, it has to be said. Like, he did have pace once he was out in front. So I think it's been a long time coming at this point. His pace has been building and building, and now he's finally delivering on that.
Indeed he has. A fantastic race there. Lots of racing throughout. A few close moments as well. We saw one with, I think, Corey and Matt and CJH. But it was a great race. We saw a safety car at the start. Pit stop shuffles played out. And then in the end, Jack Hickey took the advantage, took the lead, and controlled the race from then onwards. Jordan, your driver of the day, just missing out on points, but recovering very well in the race to take P11. But what a moment this is for Jack Hickey. The first time that he tastes the champagne at the top of TGP1. He won in TGP2 last year for the first time, and he wins now in TGP1 for the first time just a year later. A fantastic drive from the racing point. What a way to take your first win in the league. An absolute dominant display. And as I said, making history, the first driver to have won in TGP1, TGP2 and TGP Xbox.
Yep, incredible race that we saw just there. As you said, Jack Hickey taking the race win from Matt Tibos. CJH completing the podium. Incredible drive from the McLaren driver to take his first podium in TGP1. Softcop comes home in P4, followed by Corey in P5 for Alfa Romeo. John is rounding out the top 6, followed by J. Luke in the Alfa Romeo. Paul McGee, a solid drive for the Red Bull driver in P8, followed by Mayor Quenby taking his second points finish of the season. Followed by Dan the Man getting the final point just about by 1/10 over ERT Jordan. Alistair Bain, reigning TGP2 champion, comes home in P12. Disastrous race for Phil Bargewell, who can only manage 13th in the end. Aidan Griffiths comes home 14th. JD taking the fastest lap of the race down in P15, followed by Court, who made that late stop. And Ginger Andy, who made, I believe, 3 pit stops in that race, yes. And Kamababo, the only retirement for Williams.
Jake Davies took the fastest lap of the race, but for the 5th race in a row, no one gets the point because the fastest lap setter was outside the top 10.
So, I mean, I think China, it's an underrated circuit in the sense that we do tend to get great racing around that track. It may not be the most exciting track to drive all the time, but, you know, the racing quality is, well, it has to be up there, one of the best on the calendar. You know, we saw, especially in Sector 1, you know, the first half of that lap, how great it is for side-by-side racing. It's only really the middle part of the track where you can't do that. But there's overtaking everywhere else you look around that circuit. But we move on to Vietnam, which is a different story. But this is TGP, of course, so we should expect great racing regardless of the circuit we visit.
Yeah, this is round number 12 of the season. We're about to go racing at Vietnam. Not one of the most popular circuits amongst drivers, but I'm sure fans around the world will love the circuit for its great corners and its great racing.
Indeed.
Well, just a reminder of what we've got to expect in the coming days. We've got TGP2 tomorrow. Join us for that. We've got an epic 5-way title fight between Jack, Mike, Luca, Chris Johnson and Sam Hickey, the brother of new TGP1 race winner Jack Hickey. So do join us for that tomorrow. An epic fight throughout the field, not just the top 5 title contenders. So many different drivers can get themselves at the front, and great battles throughout the grid. So join us tomorrow for TGP2. Commentary will be brought to you from 7:25 onwards. TGP Dirt on Thursday and Friday. You can watch the latest round of that championship. It'll be round 3 of 7. We've currently got a shock leader in TGP Dirt, Dom Smith, who is only there out of a fluke and will not be a threat for the rest of the season. I think Dom's real goal has to be to try and get top 10 this season, and he's started off very well with that goal by leading the championship after 2 rounds. Wouldn't you agree, Roy?
I admire your humbleness, that's all I'll say on that matter.
Well, we're about to go racing. Once the drivers remember that you need to press ready up in order to start the session.
Which it seems only 4 of them have actually done. Vietnam, of course, was first raced in TGP2 before TGP1, and the first ever TGP event at Vietnam at this circuit was won by Mayor Quenby, who is in the race today. Can't say he's as likely to win in this particular race, but you never know. Anything can happen in TGP.
Indeed, indeed. Indeed, indeed. No, and the first winner of Vietnam. And will he be the last winner of Vietnam? This is the last race, hopefully. We'll see at this circuit in TGP1. I don't think we'll see a victory, but hopefully some points.
Yeah, of course, the circuit could not actually host a Grand Prix in 2020. You know why, but I think it still got added to the game because it was a rather late decision to call off the race because the season was due to start basically as the pandemic hit. But yeah, it remains on the game and it remains on the TGP calendar, and we're now heading into the second ever qualifying at this circuit in TGP.
So Softy did clip the back of the Haas driver. It was very unfortunate. Softy just got caught out as the Haas dived into the pit lane. Softy not expecting it, and that spun the AlphaTauri around, and that of course lost him the potential race victory. He was ahead, I think, of Jack Hickey at the time. But he did go on, of course, to finish P4 in the end, just missing out on the podium places. What a circuit Vietnam is. When you think of great circuits, you think of Belgium, you think of Suzuka, and you certainly do think of the Vietnam Grand Prix circuit. It's a real challenge for the drivers. So many iconic corners, such as turn 1, turn 4, turn 7. It really comes off the tongue, doesn't it? Vietnam has always produced great racing. So many great battles throughout the history of Formula 1 and TGP. Vietnam, of course, located in the wonderful country of Vietnam. It has produced, as I said, great history and great racing on racing leagues and in the real world of Formula 1. It's going to be a great race, isn't it, Will?
I fully expect it to be, yes. Of course, as you mentioned, it is quite the blockbuster of a circuit, and yes, I expect action-packed racing throughout.
Well, do stick with us because we have got a dry race, so you do not want to miss this one. A dry race around Vietnam. It's going to be absolutely thrilling from start to finish, I am sure, as the drivers start to leave the pit lane to go out on this wonderful track. Yeah, the drivers, I'm sure, will have some tears in their eyes as they realise this is the last time they'll be racing around this circuit. I think we might see some maybe donuts at the end of the race as drivers try to remember the great history and tradition of Vietnam Grand Prix.
Yes, and hopefully it won't just remain a dream. I mean, we'll actually see this in real life as well. Seeing the likes of Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel tackle these streets in spectacular fashion.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next 45 minutes, that's for sure. If the stream goes down for any reason, we do apologise. It would be a real shame if it just stopped and we couldn't bring you the rest. But I'm sure we're going to see a great race, so please do stick with us. So much to talk about. It's a track with real history, Roy. What's your favourite memories from Vietnam?
Oh, my favourite memories from Vietnam, I believe it was the original tour we got from Rosanna Tennant showing us the goats that used to wander around the streets. And yeah, I think that was my, the conception of the circuit itself has to be my favourite memory.
Well, Rosanna Tennant, of course, a great journalist in the world of Formula 1, so if she gets Vietnam the approval, then here at TGP Series we also give Vietnam our approval. 15 minutes still to go in this session. We've only gone through 2.5 minutes, so go on your phones for a bit, I think. I don't know what to say. It's such a bad circuit.
Well, interestingly, I think the most interesting thing we have so far is that Softy has actually decided to go onto the soft tyres, as we see Jordan disqualified from the session. So action-packed drama we have so far.
Jordan
in the
can't be
first
bothered.
3 minutes.
Jordan can't be bothered. He just retired. He thought, fuck this. I'm going to get myself disqualified. I'm not sitting through 18 minutes of qualifying. Well, I'm with you there, Jordan. I might do the same tomorrow in TGP2.
Well, Softy's on a lap. As things stand, it's still valid as he heads down into the hairpin at the end of the very long back straight, which kind of wiggles its way around. It's kind of an awkwardly designed back straight, but nevertheless, he keeps it nice and tidy through the exit. Through now the end of the second sector, what can he do? It's purple, obviously, because no one said a lap, but through the S's now, winding your way through the walls. So easy to clip the walls here. It's all about patience now through the second half of this last sector. You don't want to take too much speed through these corners as
JD's left, he can't be bothered either.
That's also left. And Softy comes through the final corner and takes provisional pole. Of course, some things never change.
Well, that was a real lap. I enjoyed that one from start to finish. Softy got with a fantastic lap. This circuit is so wonderful. It's just a nice rhythm from turn 1 to turn 18 of this Vietnamese Grand Prix circuit. Softy with a 1:33.3, 1.3 seconds clear of J-Luke. Can't wait for this race. This is CJ to go second. The gap not so big now. Phil Bardwell at 1:33.9, just 6/10 back from the AlphaTauri. The gaps are starting to come down. We joke, it is really going to be an entertaining race, so please do stick with us. All the drivers now getting in their first laps of the session. The second Ferrari down the man has only gone P7. The Red Bull of JD has chose to pit. His teammate Paul McGee goes P8. What about the Mercedes of Matt Tibbos? He's about to start his first lap in this session, so what can he do about that 1:33.3 of Softy? Matt Tibbos looking for his second consecutive pole position. Softy scored both last week, and Matt Tibbos get both this week. Softy and Matt currently on 5 poles each from this season. Those two have been the kings in qualifying. I think the only of the pole setters we've seen in TGB1 this season have been Dan the Man and Jonas, which came at Japan and Italy. Jonas got that shock pole, of course, at Italy, and that came out of nowhere. I think you might have been there with me for that race, Roy. That was a good one from Jonas.
I believe so. Yeah, it was a great lap from the Renault driver. Unfortunately, things didn't quite materialise in the race, and we saw that dramatic incident with Phil Bardwell and the late penalty. But yeah, incredible racing that night, and of course we've more to look forward to now.
Indeed, we do. Yellow flag in the first 2 sectors. That is just for a McLaren slowing down on his outlap back to the pit, so nothing to worry about. Ginger Andy did pit for a late soft tyre call in China, tried to get the fastest lap of the race, but unfortunately was just pipped by JD. But as I said, 5 drivers in the last 5 races that have taken the fastest lap have not scored the point, as is the rule. Of course, you have to be within the top 10 to take that bonus point, but it doesn't stop the drivers. The drivers still go for it, even though they're no longer going to get a point. They want that pride of taking the fastest lap. Matt Tibbos then coming round the final few corners now. What can he do about Softy's provisional pole timer? 1:33.339. I wish it was 6 thousandths quicker. Could have been a 3:33.333. Matt Tibbos round the final corner. It's neat and tidy so far. Where can he put that Mercedes? Is it provisional pole? It's not. He's 2 tenths adrift of the AlphaTauri driver. What about the racing point of Jack Hickey? He, of course, last time race winner. Where can he go? It's P3 for him. A further 3 tenths back. Who else is out there on a lap at the moment? I think the McLaren of Ginger Andy has abandoned his lap. He's going to come straight back into the pit lane as we now go into a bit of a lull in this session.
Yeah, I think the closest driver now to start a lap is Aiden, and he's only entering the final sector now. Of course, drivers can end up out of sync if they invalidate previous runs. So sometimes don't bother doing your practice run and just head back out there and see what you can do. But yeah, hopefully finish it, hopefully keep everything valid. One would assume that the first run didn't go too well, hence why he's still yet to set a time. And not only him, but Corey as well, as Aiden actually clips the inside wall in the final corner and then also runs into the outside wall at the final corner. And well, that's Aiden's run here gone as well. So the Racing Point driver has a lot of work to do.
Yeah, it's the last thing you want to do, clip that exit of the wall at the final corner. He's ruined the start of his next lap. I think Aiden will just return to the pits and go again. He's not on a very quick run down to this 4th corner. This roundabout's going to be really tricky, very easy to lose the back end, I think drivers are saying in practice. So we'll keep an eye out for that in the race. But with 10 minutes to go, it is Softy provisionally pole position with Matt Tibbos and Jack Hickey not too far behind.
And Corey now starts a lap heading into the incredibly tight turn 1. And then around the allegedly Nürburgring-esque turns 2, 3 and 4. Corey using as much of the track as he can. Be careful to keep all your wheels within those white lines. DRS wide open now on the run down to turn 6 or 5. I'll be honest, I have forgotten, but it is allegedly purple through the first sector. Use as much of these curbs as you possibly can without invalidating the lap. He's used a bit too much curb on the exit there. It's pushed his car towards the wall. Now he needs to get a good exit to set up this massively long back straight. One of the few overtaking opportunities on this calendar, despite the straights on this circuit. DRS not open just yet. That's how long this straight is. DRS wide open now for the Alfa Romeo driver. Former champion, of course, as he heads down into the hairpin at the end of the second sector. Another incredibly tight corner. You want to hit the apex. He's just missed it. You want to avoid the exit curve because you don't want to disturb the momentum of your car. No DRS down here, but it is the end of the final, or the end of the second sector. I don't have the telemetry up right now, but I'll fix that in a moment as he winds his way through the S's, between the walls, careful not to use too much of the curbs, and all about compromise now through these penultimate corners, I should say. Keep the traction in check, and then carry as much speed through here without clipping any walls, and he's done just that, and Corey will jump into P2.
Good lap from Corsa. Just a 10th back from the AlphaTauri. Softy's looking very good, isn't he? Very quick that time. He's going to take some beaten. We know Phil can get close to the 32s, so there is still time to be found. I'm sure Softy himself can find more time if needed.
Yeah, Softy's great for biding his time. He knows exactly when to strike. And I believe it was purple again through that second sector, so Softy is finding more time out there, looking to extend his gap. Maybe Softy can break into the 32s. But the AlphaTauri driver now through the third last corner. Keep it tight through here. Don't use too much throttle too early. He's done very nicely through there. Don't clip the walls through the final corner. And the AlphaTauri driver improves by 0.3 of a second to a 33.0. But what can Phil Bargewell in the Ferrari do? Apparently it's purple in the second sector. Winding his way now through the S's. The Ferrari driver will be looking for his first pole position of the season, if I can get my words right, and he heads through the final few corners now. It's all looking good for the Ferrari driver so far. Can it be enough for pole position though? Through the final corner, as much speed as you possibly can. The Ferrari driver goes up into P2, but he's still 0.4 adrift of Softcop.
Looking pretty good for the AlphaTauri, isn't it? He's 0.4 clear of the opposition at the moment. Very tight between Phil, Corsa and Matt Tibos, but all three of them some way back from the AlphaTauri. So there's been a bad qualifying so far for Aidan Griffiths, of course, yet to set a lap, clip the wall in his first run. He'll be looking to get in a good time very shortly. Cam Baba also yet to set a lap in this session, but 6 minutes to go, and I have to say, I think Softy's looking in pretty fine form again.
Yeah, Softy is going to be incredibly tough to beat that lap. I think Phil will be disappointed. I think he was in with a shot of pole position for this Hanoi race, but at the moment he's 0.4 back. It's going to take a mega effort in the final few minutes of the session for the Ferrari driver to challenge Softcop. But of course, never say never. We saw laps and positions changing all the time at the end of the China session, so who's to say it's not going to be the same for this magnificent Hanoi street circuit.
Yeah. Softy, of course, could go ahead of Jonas in the all-time poles list by taking pole number 57, put him outright second at the end of this race, if he can hold on for now. But it's a very good start for him. Matt Tibos then, currently P4, is about to dive into the pit lane. All the drivers now will be waiting a little bit longer, try and get the track at its very best, and then go right at the death to try and take that pole position.
Jack Hickey on a lap down the back straight now. DRS wide open for the Racing Point driver. I believe his teammate is the car behind him. I don't know if he's on a lap, but yeah, Jack Hickey almost took pole position in that last race in China. I think he would be a little bit gutted to not take it after being so close as well. But the Racing Point driver, he's slightly slower than his previous time, but I think that purple sector on the track map is a bit of a glitch. But the Racing Point driver looking to maximise his final sector. He could still improve. There's still time to be found out there. So he needs to find 0.3 to improve up into the front two rows. But of course, not impossible as he rounds his way around the penultimate corner, through the final corner now. The Racing Point driver, where can he go? He clips the wall on the inside, though. I don't think it's going to be an improvement. And no, Jack Hickey does not improve his time. His teammate, however, will jump up into P8. So not all disastrous for the other Racing Point driver.
Yeah, both Racing Points now into the top 10. Of course, they've got a real fight on their hands against AlphaTauri in the Constructors' Championship. They've taken the edge after China, but with Softy looking in imperious form here, a win for Softy would mean Racing Point need to be at least, 4th and 5th, or 3rd and 4th to match the points or do greater than AlphaTauri at least. Of course, Mayor Quimby, 15th at the moment, can also score points for that AlphaTauri team. Unfortunately, not quite on the same level as Softy so far this season. Kawababo coming around the final corners. Where can he put that Williams? So this will be his first lap time in the session with 4 minutes to go. It'll be tight if he can get back to the pits and get another run in. The lap time, we're at 1:33 around here. But Kawababo to the line. Where can he go? It's into P12. Not quite in the top 10. But I think he'll be happy with that because it does mean a fresh set of tyres if he starts there for the race.
Yeah, P11. It's much better to start P11 than P10, depending on your strategy. But even still, fresh tyres are still a benefit regardless. But yeah, solid effort from Kawababo. There's a bit of more of a field spread that we're seeing around this Hanoi street circuit. A lot of drivers do struggle with its technicality, but you know, perhaps those gaps will decrease as the session ends. And we have a lot of drivers now beginning their outlap, starting their final runs of the session. And J. Luke is also close to the finish line on his outlap. But yeah, let's see what happens in these final few minutes of the session. Softy still on provisional pole. Still in the pits, yet to leave. Phil Bargewell and Corza are on their outlaps. Phil Bargewell is just in the first sector, whereas Corey is heading down the back straight now for Alfa Romeo. Where can the Alfa Romeo driver finish? It is very close for 2nd, 3rd and 4th behind Softy, but of course Softy is 4/10 clear, so these other drivers do have a huge amount of time to find. But, well, never say never. As Softy leaves the pits now and he's on his outlap in the first sector.
So Softy, Phil, Corza, Matt Tibos and Jack Hickey, you have to say as well, I think it's between those 5 as to who is going to get this pole position. They've all got some way to go to beat Softy's time. Will anyone duck into the 32s? We've seen it in practice. Phil did set a 32.9 in a practice session, so he can beat that time if he can nail the lap. Of course, the quickest times will come at the end of the session when it is at its most greenest. So lap times should tumble. As you can see, a Ferrari leaving the pit lane now, and that is, I think, down the man, because Phil is already out there at turn 4, about to start his final lap of the session. About with Softy, Phil, Corey and Matt. It is Corey who is the first one to start their final laps of the session.
Corey winding his way through turn 2, and it looks like...
I think he's bailed out of it.
Yeah, he's backed off. He must have been an incident at turn 1 for the Alfa Romeo. I believe the next driver to cross the line to start his final run of the session will be Phil Bargewell in the Ferrari, currently P2, and I think he would be happy with the P2, but I don't think he'd be happy with the lap time that he has done. So I think Phil Bargewell will want to reduce the gap to Softy and feel that he has done a solid effort. DRS wide open now for the Ferrari driver through this incredibly tight hairpin of turn 1. Don't want to use too much of the exit to open 3, as there's a Racing Point on the exit. They just about keep out of the way. I don't think those Racing Points are going to actually have the time to finish this outlap. But yeah, the Ferrari driver of Phil Bargewell, DRS wide open now. What can he do in this first sector? Was he compromised? I think he was. He's a 1/4 of a second down on his own time through the first sector. And now he's invalidated the lap as well for good measure. So Phil Bargewell, as things stand, unless he has enough deployment and enough time to make it around the rest of the track, Phil Bargewell will be no higher than 2nd place. But of course, he could still make it around, as Matt Tibos now is now on a lap, using a lot of the road through turn 2. As he heads through now the end of the first sector, DRS wide open for the Mercedes driver. Where can he go? Car 44, because he did join the session quite late, but it is a quirk of the game. But keep it neat and tidy through this long left-hand section of the circuit. Now onto the back straight. You want to maximise your exit speed. No use slipstreaming the Red Bull that's just ahead of him, as he waits now to open the DRS through this curved back straight. And the DRS now is wide open for the Mercedes driver. There's a long wait now. You need to pick your braking point for this incredibly tight hairpin that we have at the end of this straight. Hits the apex nicely from what I can see. Avoids the exit curb to keep the momentum in the car. Improve all his traction as Kawababo retires from the session. Matt Tibos is 3/10 up on his time. At the moment, that will not be enough for pole position. He needs to find more time in the final sector if he is to challenge Sofcop for that provisional pole position. The Mercedes driver now winding his way through the S's of the final sector of this magnificent Hanoi circuit. As Phil Bardwell retires from the session, he does not have enough time. As Sofcop improves to a 32.796. So Matt Tibos is going to have to find even more time in this final sector. What can he do? He's run out of ERS deployment as Matt Tibos goes into P2 with a 32.9, which would have actually beaten Sofcop's previous time, I believe, but not enough for pole position today.
Yeah, great lap from Softy at 1:32.7. Really left it late, didn't he? But he's taken it. Bit of distraction from Court ahead of him, but it wasn't enough to put him off. He did go quite an improvement there. 1:32.7 to beat. Corey did get a final lap in, as has Jack Hickey. So those two were tight, but they made it through. Where can the Alfa Romeo go? Round the final corner. Is it enough to get himself onto the front row of the grid? He goes P2. He splits Softy and Matt Tibos, the title contenders, and that is just what he needed to do. Dan the Man is also improving out there now, coming round the final corner. Can he get that Ferrari up on the front two rows? He can't. He's hit the final corner, and he is out of this qualifying session. And Jack Hickey in P5 has backed out. He will not be improving, which means it's just CJH, I think, and the McLaren who shouldn't avoid that Ferrari. Dan the Man, he goes P5. A good qualifying for him, but it is Softy who takes his 6th pole of the season. What a lap it was from the AlphaTauri driver.
Yeah, incredible display from the championship leader. So taking another pole position. So Sofcop, as we said, on pole position ahead of the Alfa Romeo of Corey. Matt Tibos is on the second row of the grid for Mercedes, under 2/10 adrift. Then it's 6/10 back to Phil Bardwell in the Ferrari. I think he will be disappointed with that result and with that lap time. CJH, an excellent 5th place for McLaren. Will he take another podium tonight? BWT Racing Points, Jack Hickey rounds out the top 6, followed by Dan the Man in the Ferrari. Alistair Bain ahead of his older brother Aidan Griffins in P8 and 9 respectively. Johners rounding out the top 10. Paul McGee will be the first of the cars to have fresh choice of tyres, followed by J. Luke, Ginger Andy, Mark Wenby, Camo Babo, Kurt in the Haas, JD not setting a time for Red Bull Racing, and I believe it was Camo Babo who also did not set a time for... It was a Camo Babo or was it Jordan who did not set a lap time? It was one of them anyway.
Jordan.
Right, so Jordan will start at the back of the grid yet again. Nothing to lose, so might as well go for it. As we wait now for the drivers to ready up.
The Minis Grand Prix, I think it's going to be a real fight between Softy, Matt and Corey into turn 1. We've seen Matt's not got the best starts in recent races. Keep an eye on that as the lights go out. But Softy has made it his aim this season to get the best starts he can. We saw how good he can be off the line in Bahrain. I think it was, he gained 2 places to take the lead of that race, but it should be really tight, and I'm looking forward to how this one develops.
Yep, as am I. Softy has been very good off the start, and I think Phil Bardwell could also be a factor in this race as the lights go on. 3 lights, 4, 5. And we are away at the Hanoi Street Circuit, and it's a great start from what I can see from Sofcop. Edging away now from Corey. Softy defends the inside line because he wants to keep that first position into turn 1, and he does so indeed. Running wide there is Matt Tibos. Turn 2, so not a great exit for Sofcop. It's Corey who leads this race from Matt Tibos so far, but Softy has the inside line now for this corner. Will Matt Tibos run into the wall? No, he will not. He backs out of it. So Sofcop now down into P2, and it's Corey who leads this race from Matt Tibos. CJH now challenging the Mercedes driver. Will these drivers be battling out again? But Phil Bardwell down to 5th. Not a disaster, but at the same time not great for the Ferrari driver, who would have had his hopes on winning this race. P6 followed by Dan the Man, as Dan the Man is actually side by side with the Racing Point driver. I thought one of them was going to hit the wall there, but no, they are still side by side heading down this straight, as Corey has a 1 second lead now up at the front. Matt Tibos is quite close behind CJH in the McLaren, who's up into P3 from P5 on the grid. Phil Bardwell still running in P5, followed by his teammate Dan the Man. Jack Hickey is all over the back of the Ferrari driver. Will he make a move down into the hairpin? No, he will not, but Aidan Griffins almost hits the Renault of Johners. The Renault of Alistair Bain, actually, I should say. Solid drive from the Scotsman, still running in the top 8 for Renault. But out in front, it is Corey who leads from Sofcop.
What a start it was from the Alfa Romeo driver. Got ahead of Matt Tibos and, crucially, race leader Softy. If Softy wasn't going to win this race, they needed the drivers behind to make sure they got clear into turn 1, and they did just that. CJH, what a start. Up 2 places into 3rd. He's past Phil and Matt, so a crucial start for the McLaren driver, continuing his rich reign of form at the moment. Almost got Softy as well on the opening lap. But you can see how much more he is struggling. Is Matt Tibbles going to get him into turn one? The Mercedes driver looking to get back through on that McLaren. It's going to be so tight. These two had a great battle in China last time round. CJH will break a little later, which allows Matt Tibbles to, for now, keep behind the McLaren. Phil Bodgel looking to join in on this fight. He fancies his chances of a podium at least from this race. Of course, a long way to go. 14 laps, safety cars, the chance of anything around a circuit like this. But Corey, a crucial start, and Matt Tibbles looking to get clear of the McLaren as quickly as he possibly can.
In terms of ERS deployment, it's actually Corey who's doing better than Softy, but I think Softy has to play a bit of a defensive role in that first lap to defend from the pack behind. Corey now leads this race.
They're going side by side.
Oh yeah, side by side.
Matt Tibbles and CJH.
Can the Mercedes driver make his way past the McLaren driver a lot quicker than he did in China in the last race? At the moment, it looks like CJH has more straight line speed as they bang wheels heading down this curved back straight. But it's Matt Tibbles who will have the inside line for this hairpin, but you need to be careful. It's an incredibly tight corner, but Matt Tibbles is the one who has the advantage, but maybe not, as CJH gets the advantage on the traction. Phil Bardwell is right there for the taking if he can find a way past Matt Tibbles, but I don't think he will be able to, as the straight is just a bit too short. But CJH holds on to this podium position as things stand.
CJH last season was fighting for around 10th, 11th each race. This time he finds himself up fighting for podiums. He's found some pace, hasn't he, over the last few months. As CJH spins it round, I've cursed him. He's gone to the back of the grid, I think. He's spun round, and Matt Tibbles makes an early pit stop. Maybe he's expecting a safety car. Well, whatever it is, he's going to get clean air because the pack is nicely bunched up from about 4th downwards. We've also got, I think, a Renault. John is diving into the pit lane, so a few of the drivers then choosing to pit early, but a shame for CJH. It was looking so well. Unfortunately, I cursed him, and Matt Tibbles goes on to the medium tyres for the remainder of this race. Unfortunately for him, no safety car.
Yeah, potential disaster for the McLaren driver of CJH. If anything, it's the best place he could have possibly spun because he's right next to that pit lane exit, or pit lane entry, as I should say, because it is rather early around the lap. If there's no safety cars, then I think CJH might still be in a good position come the end of this race, but he'll need to nurture these tyres now until the end of the race, because pitting on lap 2 of 14 is far from ideal. A soft cop now will have DRS on Corey. I don't think it'll be enough to make a move, but it will be enough to get him closer to potentially set moves up further on in this race. Phil Bardwell on his own 1.5 seconds clear of his teammate Dan the Man in P4. I think he'll be very surprised to see himself running that high, as we see an incident towards the back of the grid. I believe Camel Babel had a spin.
Aiden and J-Luke, 3 abreast down this back long straight. I'm sorry to cut in. Alistair and Aiden fighting side by side, the two brothers. They had a great battle at France last time round. Who's going to come out on top in this one? J-Luke looking to get in on the action. Alistair for now holds P6. Aiden has to settle behind. And of course, J-Luke's got to be careful because Paul McGee was just waiting there to take his opportunity. And he now himself gets him to the top 8 of this race. What a move from Paul. Another spin in sector 2. I think it's Kamababo may have some damage. Will that be a VSC or safety car? No, Matt Tibbles wants. He has just pitted. Not what Corey and Softy want, because they've just gone past the pit entry, but what a battle it was on the back straight there.
And speaking of Corey and Softy, Softy has now closed the gap now down to about 0.6 of a second. And of course, he has DRS down 2 zones, and actually 3 DRS zones at this Hanoi street circuit, packed with overtaking opportunities. But the AlphaTauri driver will be looking to take another victory this season and to extend that championship lead. Not that he really needs to, but it is Corey who is out in first place as Camo Babo has left the session. He's had enough, but or rather, well, the damage has made him had enough. But Corey now leads this race, 6/10 clear, but Softy is all over the back of him. ERS deployment is actually now back on Softy's side. Corey is now feeling the need to use his ERS deployment to go defensive from the AlphaTauri driver, and they've now built up a 3-second gap to Phil Bardwell. I don't think Phil quite has the race pace of the two in front.
So many battles throughout this field. Softy fights Causa, but further back we've got Jack Hickey all over the back and down the man. We've got Aiden and Alistair going side by side again in 6th and 7th. It's hard to pick a battle, but I think Aiden is about to make the move on Alistair Bain for P6. The Racing Point needs a strong points haul here because Softy looking very good up front in the AlphaTauri. As down the man holds on to P4, you can see Aiden taking P6 ahead of his brother. He'll brake a little later and make sure he stays clear of the Renault driver. A fine move from Aiden into P6, now just a place behind his teammate.
I think smart driving from Alistair. I think if you can let someone by who's that much quicker, I think sometimes it is better to do so, just to get from A to B as quickly as you possibly can. So solid racing from the Griffin Bain brothers, but Aiden now up into P6. I think he'll be quite happy with that. Jack Hickey, his teammate, is all over the back of Dan the Man, and Softy is all over the back of Cora. Phil Bardwell kind of on his own in P3, but I think he'll take that, to be honest. But Jack Hickey now will be looking to move up into P4 so he can potentially then hunt down Phil Bargewell. DRS wide open down this pit straight, but I don't think he's going to be close enough. But Softcop is still 7/10ths back from Corey. It's looking relatively stable so far. Of course, Softy does not have to use as much ERS deployment because he has DRS around 3 zones of this circuit, and they're very long DRS zones at that. So it's looking good for Softcop right now in terms of his strategy. I think he'll be comfortable sitting here, although of course I think he would rather have kept the lead on lap 1.
Yeah, it was a poor start from Softy. You don't tend to see that. Indeed he has. There is that bit of damage on the Alpha Tauri. That's good news for Corey if it is. Is it? He might have to pit them this time around, and will he choose to change it? He's going to lose a bit more, and it's not really wise to stay out without a front wing or parts of it missing on a circuit like this. A street circuit, of course, so easy to find yourself in another wall. So will he choose to change it next time round, but not what Softy needed at all? Yeah,
I thought he hit it with the back of the car more so than the front, so I'm surprised to see the wing damage, but yeah, I think Softy, he'll have to pit this lap because, well, there's no point really staying out unless he thinks he can extend the gap more so, or potentially stay out and look for a potential safety car or virtual safety car. But as things stand, Softy is now, well, it's not looking great for his race winning hopes, and that will potentially promote Phil Bargewell up into P2. But it's looking good for Corey as things stand on lap 5 of the race. Does Softy choose to come into the pit? Yes, he does. He's not chancing a safety car. And the pit lane entry, Softy will of course jump into the lead technically because the pit lane does actually cut the penultimate corner. But yeah, disaster for the AlphaTauri driver. He's not had a smooth night, but to be fair, I don't think Matt Tibos has either. So well, let's see what happens. And he's not the only driver who's coming into the pits. Dan the Man also comes into the pits, as does Alistair Bain. But Softy does change that wing damage. Thought he's being held up in the pits there, but no, they're just taking their time to change that wing, and he's out. He's not being held up, but Dan the Man is now right behind Softy. I don't think that's something he would have expected, and apologies, I did try to change the camera, but it's full of cars going down the pit straight, but it's Softy who has to pit, and it's Corza, aka Corey, who is, well, he's looking in pole position to win this race right now. Matt Tibos has made a fine move on court to get through on the Haas driver. He needs to do just that because Corza and Phil will be pitting very soon. Matt could well jump those drivers. The gap at the moment to the front is 23 seconds. A pit stop not so long here because of course you cut the final corner to get into the pit lane and you cut turn 1 to leave the pit lane. So Matt Tibos might not just have enough to take P1, but it should put him in the fight. Softy has come out about 3 seconds adrift of the Mercedes driver. He chose to change the front wing. I think that was a wise decision. The win now might now be out of the question if Corey doesn't make a similar mistake. But surely Corey this time will come in and react to the AlphaTauri's decision, or will he choose to stay out, keep the clean air? If those tyres are fine, then I guess there's no reason to stay out. And Dan the Man has overtaken Softcop. I don't think that's something he would have expected to do tonight. He was not very optimistic heading into these 2 rounds, as I said earlier, especially around here in Vietnam. But Dan the Man has passed Softcop. I don't think the... actually, no, sorry. Has he? It was Mayor Quenby. My apologies. But Softcop currently running in P8 behind the Haas driver of Kurt. And it's not what he needs, but he could still play a factor for the podium places come the end of this race. He does have that natural pace as Kurt in the Haas decides to dive into the pits and gets a 5-second penalty as he does so. He did not brake in time. Some drivers not fans of the pit lane entry, it has to be said. Down the Man, I know, is particularly critical. But Matt Tibos, look at this. I think Corey will get the lead still, but yeah, Matt Tibos is now going side by side with Phil Bargewell on the pit exit, but Phil Bargewell just keeps that position. But of course these drivers do have fresher tyres compared to the Mercedes driver just behind them. That was crucial for Matt Tibos to try and get clear of the Ferrari. He might have another couple of chances to get back through on Phil Bargewell. He's going to want to get through as soon as he can. Look how much quicker the Mercedes driver appears to be. And of course he will now get DRS on this next long bending straight. Phil Bargewell will want to keep clear of the Mercedes driver if he wants any chance of taking his first victory of the season. He is currently 2.6 seconds adrift of Corza F1, who is looking good at the moment to take only his 2nd win of the season, possible 13th of his career. Ginger Andy, the only driver now out there yet to make a stop. But Matt Tibos, I think, a bit too far back to make a move here on Phil Bargewell for P3. And I would just like to apologise for the technical issues that we are currently having. I believe there is actually no picture being displayed, but the audio is fine, so we have kind of turned into a radio broadcast for this Hanoi race circuit. But yeah, we're still bringing you all the commentary as planned, but for whatever reason the picture quality, well, it's not even the picture quality, it's just the picture is not displaying. But we are seeing an incredible race, and we will continue to commentate on it for you. Hopefully, it will return. I'm not quite sure what the cause is. New technology. It's not foolproof, as I'm beginning to see. But currently, it is Ginger Andy who leads this race. But of course, he has yet to stop. But it's still looking great for Corsa as Softcop sets the fastest lap of the race. He's now only 1.3 seconds behind the Mercedes of Matt Tibos. So I think Softy is still in contention for a P2 position around this circuit.
So we turn into radio mode, then let's try and keep you updated as best we can. Apologies for the stream issues. We've not had this before. This is very unusual, but we'll try and give you a rundown in the final 6 laps of this race at Vietnam. Corsa is the man out front at the moment. All the drivers have made their stops other than Andy. Andy will pit from the lead and fall down to around position 13 or 14, maybe try and get a points haul at the end of the race. But Corsa leads 2 seconds clear of Phil Bardwell. He himself is a second clear of Matt Tibos, with Softy now P4 after changing front wing damage. He is a second back from the Mercedes. Down the man, Jack Hickey, Aidan, Alistair and Paul currently complete the top 10 with Jordan, J. Luke, CJH, Court and Owen down behind them. Court has just passed Owen into P14. A brilliant move. You can't see it, but I can. And it was a fantastic one from the Haas driver. He's through into P14. No points at the moment, but crucially ahead of this race. But as the field starts to get a bit close, we can see Jack Hickey and Aidan are 7. Well, you can't see it, but I can. Jack Hickey and Aidan are 7th and 8th. The 2 racing points are going to go racing very shortly. They can see the Ferrari down the man ahead of them. Down the man 4 seconds back from Softy. So it is between these 3 for 6th, 7th and 8th. Ginger Andy, when will he choose to pit? Ginger Andy is going to be in Corey's way very shortly, because Corey is now just a second back from the McLaren driver, and that could be an issue for him. If he doesn't clear him quickly, then Phil Boswell will be right on the back of Corsa and could take the position from him. But Aidan still on the back of Jack Hickey, and Jack Hickey still on the back of Dan the Man.
Ginger Andy, I'm surprised to actually see him on these soft compound tyres. I thought, maybe he was going to be on the alternate strategy if he was going to stay out this long. I think he's desperate for a safety car, a virtual safety car. But as things stand, it's just not working out for the McLaren driver unless it comes out immediately. But even still, I think even with that, I think he would drop out of the points. But of course, he would have fresher tyres. But time is ticking for the McLaren driver. But of course, sometimes we see this in TGP when drivers are not quite on the pace. They will try to go for a risky strategy that may not pay off. But, these things happen, and this is what makes the racing so exciting.
Well, Ginger Andy is about to lose the lead of this race as Owen is out of this race. Owen has become the second retirement. Corsa is going side by side with Ginger Andy. Ginger Andy will surely not put up too much of a fight. In fact, he finally does let the Alfa Romeo go. Andy surely will pit this time round and go on to the soft tyres. Sorry, the medium tyres until the end of the race. He's choosing to take those soft tyres along. A bit of an interesting call there from Andy, but tyre wear not as big a factor as a track like China. But Matt Tibos, currently 4th place in the race, will be P3 once Andy makes his stop. Is trying to keep Softy behind. Their gap is at 4 tenths, and it's very close as to who will take the final podium spot.
Yeah, still all to play for the podium positions. I think Phil Bardwell will be looking to close in on Corsa, and also just for that retirement for Mark Wenby, that will not trigger a safety car, as it was a retirement that occurred in the pit lane. But Softcop is now all over the back of Matt Tibos. As Ginger Andy does finally decide to pit, clean pit lane entry, no penalties for him. The soft tyres, I think, on the McLaren had just given up, and Ginger Andy tried everything he could to get a good position around here, but I think he will drop down the field now. Wonder where he will come out, but as things stand up at the front, it is still Corey ahead of Phil Bardwell. 2.5 seconds is the gap, but Softcop now 4 tenths behind the Mercedes driver. He will have DRS now heading down the end of the first sector. DRS is wide open. He's not using his overtake though. He does not want to overtake the Mercedes into this corner. He feels like there is no point. But a bit of a lock-up from the AlphaTauri driver. Brakes glowing red. But it's all about maximising your exit speed through here. And almost contact through there as Matt Tibos runs quite wide through that corner, potentially compromising the exit of both of them. But I think Softcop will have this position done and dusted heading into the hairpin. He's all over the back of him, and DRS is yet to be even opened. But Softcop has actually managed to, as Matt Tibos made a defensive manoeuvre, Softcop has actually clipped the wall on the straight. Technically not a straight, of course, but still Softcop now has wing damage, so I think that's now Matt Tibos' advantage now for this podium position. Softcop's going to have to defend like crazy in these final 5 laps. But the gap up at the front now is now 2.2 between Corey and Phil. Could Phil Bardwell potentially mount a challenge for the race victory?
Well, it'll be interesting to see if he can. 4 laps to go in this race. Next time they cross the line, it is Corey from Phil. P4, Jack Hickey P5, Dan, Aiden, Alistair, Jordan and Paul completing the top 10 with J. Luke, CJH on his charge back through the field after his early spin on lap 1. Lost the back end, unfortunately for him, sent him spinning, just a mistake by himself. He is currently P12, trying to get himself back into the points. But yeah, Corey 2.4 clear of Phil. I think he's just taking it easy now on the final 4 laps. It's so easy to hit a wall, but Phil pushing that little bit more, trying to put the Alfa Romeo under some sort of pressure to maybe try and take his first win of the season. But Matt Tibbos is keeping within a second of Softy. He's got the DRS, but I think he's just too far back, and I think, of course, pitting earlier than Softy for those medium tyres has ultimately left him with very worn mediums.
I think if Matt Tibbos knows about Softy's wing damage, he could potentially strike later on in the race. If he knows about this wing damage, to save his ERS and then attack in the last 2 laps of the race as Johners retires in the pit lane. That will not trigger any kind of safety car of any sort. But yeah, Matt Tibbos biding his time, I think, as things stand. But of course, as you mentioned, he will have tyres that are more worn. But I think it's the wing damage that will play crucial. Softy has another lock-up into the hairpin. The AlphaTauri driver is forced to push. The gap out in front is still quite stable, 2.3 seconds. Phil does have more ERS deployment, but I think it's still Corey who will have the advantage as things stand, as it's getting quite close now between Jack Hickey and Dan the Man for P5, as Dan the Man has a big slide on the exit of that corner. Again, apologies that nobody can actually see this, but Dan the Man currently in P6, although he does have a penalty which will drop him down to P7. Alistair Bain running a very solid race in P8 ahead of Jordan, who's also having a great race in P10, or P9 I should say. And it's Aidan Griffins now who's all over the back of Dan the Man. Dan the Man in a Racing Point sandwich. I think Aidan Griffins just clipped the inside of that final corner. DRS is wide open, but his exit was compromised. I don't think he's picked up any damage from that, so it was a very light bit of contact. But Aidan Griffins now remains behind Dan the Man. Dan the Man, of course, does have the slipstream and the DRS of the Racing Point just ahead, but I don't think he has the speed to overtake.
Well, I thought Softy would clear Matt Tibbos for P3, but Matt Tibbos has come back to the AlphaTauri driver. The gap is at 0.4 of a second. Is Softy nursing that car to the end? I don't think he has more damage, but maybe he does, because the AlphaTauri now has the Mercedes all over the back of him. Matt Tibbos as well with better ERS, so if he can use this to his advantage in the closing 2.5 laps, he could well take back the podium. He has DRS again. Is it going to be close enough to make a move on Softy after this long straight into the following corner? He's going to get very close. He's going to go for the move. He brakes a little later, tries to go around the outside, but Softy parks it wisely, and Softy for now keeps P3 ahead of Matt Tibbos. But these two are 6 seconds adrift of Phil Bardwell, who himself is 2.5 seconds adrift of Corey. So it's looking good for Corey as Dan the Man and Aiden are going side by side further back for 6th and 7th. The Racing Points are 5th and 6th at the moment, which would be a score of 18 points towards their championship. AlphaTauri are only scoring 15 at the moment, courtesy of Softy, so it would be advantage Racing Point ever so slightly going into next week once again. But Matt Tibbos still 0.3 back from Softy. Can he finally, now as we start the penultimate lap of this race, gets clear of that AlphaTauri? If he has any hope of still being in this championship fight, he really needs to get through, I think, and take that podium place.
Yeah, and I think if Matt Tibbos is going to do it, it has to be down at the end of the second sector at that hairpin, because then he'll be able to use that final sector and the advantage that he has with his front wing still fully intact to make a breakaway from the AlphaTauri driver. I think this would be the perfect lap to do so. He does have a slight ERS management advantage. DRS is wide open, but he's not using that overtake button as things stand down this straight, but he will not make a move down the inside. He did have a look, making Softy use his mirrors there, but the Mercedes driver is still behind. Surely this is the lap where he does the overtake. He's now got a better exit, surely, out of this corner now. DRS will not be open until halfway down this incredibly long back straight. Surely now overtake deployment will be used, but no, I think he is still too far back. I think he maybe had his chance last time. I think if he used overtake on that last lap, I think he potentially could have got past the AlphaTauri, but the Mercedes still languishing behind the AlphaTauri driver on lap 13. He's only got one more lap to do so. There's no way he's going to be overtaking him in the final sector of this lap, but yeah, he's only got one lap to go.
Running out of time here for Matt Tibbos. Yellow flag in sector 2. Nothing to worry about. It's just, I think, CJH, I believe, further back down the field. He will not be scoring any points here in this race. But Matt Tibbos sticking with Softy. We're on now the final lap of this race. Causa looking good for win number 13 of his career, the second of the season, and this would continue the streak of Softy not winning a race. He would win no races tonight as things stand, and at the moment he's under pressure from Matt Tibbles for that final podium place. Will Matt Tibbles go for a move into turn one? He's getting very close on the final lap here. This is the closest battle on track at the moment. Meanwhile, Paul is just 9/10 back from J-Luke, back in 10th and 11th. Can Paul take the final point in this race? Softy for now holding on to P3, but Matt Tibbles has 50% hers. Softy has only 35%. Matt with DRS will have another chance coming up in this lap, but here's another one. Can he do it, Roy?
Well, surely this is now his best opportunity. Will he actually make a move at the end of the first sector? No, he thought about it, but I don't think he's going to do it, as Softy goes very deep through this corner now, through this long, incredibly long left-hander now, onto the back straight, onto the longest DRS zone and longest straight on the circuit. Matt Tibbles now, he's only 4/10 back. He's actually using his overtake this time, but I think so will Softy. Softy's also using his overtake. And Matt Tibbles now, he's only got slightly more deployment, but he does also have DRS. He's going for the outside line because Softy is defending that inside line, and they are side by side now, banging wheels down the back straight, but Soft Cop retains that inside line, but Matt Tibbles does have the better exit, almost making contact there through the exit of the hairpin, but Matt Tibbles has managed to do it. Matt Tibbles is now up into the podium places. Soft Cop tried to hold on for as long as he possibly could, and the picture has actually returned to the screen, so you will actually see the move that has just occurred. So he has returned just in time as we see Corey now through the final corner. Corey wins in Vietnam in TGP1 from Phil Bargewell in his Ferrari. Great drive from the pair of them. Matt Tibbles completing the podium after making that late move on Soft Cop. It was tight, but he managed to squeeze his way through. Soft Cop actually takes the podium. I think Matt Tibbles has run out of fuel over the line. So the racing points have come home in P5 and 6. Dan the Man comes home in P7. I think he'll take that, to be honest. Alistair Bain crosses the line in P8 for Renault, followed by his TGP2 rival from last season, Jordan, in P9. Paul McGee comes home to position. J. Luke comes home in 11th place, and Ginger Andy will come home in P12. It's a bit of a mess for CJH. I'm not actually quite sure what happened to him at the end of the session there. He does actually have wing damage. So what started out in brilliant fashion for CJH has ended in disaster for the McLaren driver. So McLaren taking no points here for the VinFast Vietnam Grand Prix, and JD, I believe, was lapped in that race. So another rough week for the Red Bull driver. But it's Corey for Alfa Romeo who comes out on top.
Fantastic drive from Corey. Softy pipping Matt Tibbles to third at the end. He did indeed take the podium as another driver of the day for Jordan. This time does take points from the race. P9 in the end for the Williams driver. But what a race it was from Corey. Another brilliant podium celebration. I love these. Corey treats us once again. He takes the top stop here at Vietnam in thankfully the last Vietnamese Grand Prix in TGP1. Hopefully forever. But Phil Bargewell, fantastic to see him second. Will we see him win a race later on in the season? And Softy back on the podium, P3 ahead of Matt Tibbles.
And apologies, the picture did actually disappear yet again, but I will go through the final order. Once again, it was, of course, Corey who did win that race from Phil Bargewell in his Ferrari. Soft Cop completes the podium places after I believe Matt Tibbles ran out of fuel over the line, and Soft Cop also taking the fastest lap. Matt Tibbles, as we mentioned, in P4 from Jack Hickey and Aidan Griffiths in the Racing Point cars. Dan the Man comes home P7 for Ferrari, followed by Alistair Bain. Jordan in P9, great drive from the Williams driver from P18 on the grid, and Paul McGee is the driver completing the points paying positions, followed by J. Luke, Ginger Andy, CJH, who was running so well at the start from P5 on the grid up to P3, followed by Kurt, JD, and then the retirements of Johners, Mayor Quenby, and Camo Babel.
What a race it's been here in TGP1. Apologies for the stream disruptions, but we'll be back tomorrow. We'll have all the issues fixed. Join us for TGP2 tomorrow for China and Vietnam. The 5-way title fight continues, so we'll see you then.